Ay, it's a new world, gotta adapt to it. Innovation, information, more than the average. Rushing, please ignore the interruptions, cause this is digital discussions.
Welcome to episode 2 of Digital Discussions. I am your host, Siano. I have a wonderful panel of folks today. My close friends, Beth Azor, Blake Haggett, and Kyle Inserra. We're going to talk today, guys, about social media and the use of social media, and maybe get a little into the development of personal brands and why they're important in business. And since I'm on with 3 OGs that spend a lot of time in the social media space pre-coronavirus. It's getting a lot more popular now. And I think that's something we've all been waiting for, so it's pretty exciting times for us here. But you know what? I think the one most consistent and common thing in this frame right here that you guys are tuning into is Beth Azor and the impact that she's had on all our lives. So Beth, talk to us about the importance of social media.
Oh, thank you. Obviously, social media is the way to leverage your brand, whatever it is. And hopefully in everyone's brand, it's the desire and the ability to give back. And what a better way to give back when you can leverage thousands of people than just one-to-one. One-to-one is still very important. And I encourage, the power of one. I believe that there's a power of one. Hugh Chen started our little, Congress Saves Small Businesses. I think we're up to almost 1,000 pictures. So for sure, I believe in the power of one-to-one. But when you can take that person's mission, whatever it is, and proclaim it or deliver it on social, on whatever platform you deem, you can make thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people pay attention. And that's what social media is all about, in my mind.
For sure. Yeah. Blake, talk to us a little bit about, your development of a personal brand, vlogging, and just why you think it's important to be involved in social media and have been using it for a while in your own business.
Yeah, so social media to me has been something that I've used for, many assets. I look at it as something that we all have the power in the ease and the usability of social media. And, what's really fascinated me about it is in specifically the real estate space, I would say 95% of our business is based around relationships. So how do you use social media to develop and enhance those relationships? I know all of us on this call today have met through social media, and then what we did to build on those relationships and make them better is we actually made an effort to meet each other in person. Digitally is one thing, especially in the era that we live in today. We have the ability to use all this technology that we've had at our fingertips for 5-10 years now. So, social media to me has been the main thing that I focus on is enhancing and broadening my relationship base.
Love that. Kyle, how about yourself?
For me, it's pretty much been everything. I would not be here talking to you guys probably without it. When I first got involved on this side of the business, I was looking to who did this type of content, and it was the 3 of you. I first saw Beth, then I saw Jay, and then I saw Blake. And that's when I really decided, despite what I was being told not to do, that I had to do. So, without it, I wouldn't be on this call with you, and I wouldn't be working with Sabre. I wouldn't be, making it such a huge part of my life if it wasn't for the impact that you guys had on me and my decision to push forward.
That's everything to me. I see Beth shaking her head also, that I think that a lot of folks who don't really understand the power of social media, they don't realize the ripple effect it has and really, how it's put us and people like us in the position that we're in currently. And, Beth, you and I have been friends for a while and help provide value to each other in any way we can. And Beth was in the Wall Street Journal yesterday for the first time as a result of somebody on this discussion here. So
Thanks to you. Thanks to you. Thanks for the intro.
listen, my pleasure. And
My bucket list.
There you go.
Right, exactly. And you know, how funny is it though, Beth, that you and I were in South Florida, maybe it's probably like 5-6 weeks ago right now, maybe a few weeks longer than that. And we're talking about everybody in our industry who's using social media and doing a great job. And that conversation led to the conversation that Kyle belongs at Sabre. And, and it's like 10 people can't be wrong. When you keep hearing, oh, you should speak to so-and-so, you should speak to so-and-so. It's such an amazing, powerful thing. So I wanted to thank you for obviously being a big part of why Kyle is now at Sabre. And Kyle, you said something interesting earlier. You were talking about being told not to do something. Can you explain that? Because I don't, being at Sabre, I don't really understand how much of the rest of the world operates. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So I was at obviously, all three of you guys know, I was at a much bigger commercial real estate firm that was stifling social content. Their idea of putting out social content was content that was approved by them, that every broker in the country would then get, and then they could put out. You could not speak to anything that was specific to really anything because it was considered like insider knowledge or you're giving away the secret sauce. And yeah, I got in trouble. I mean, you guys have all seen my posts. They're not very, I don't think they're very, I don't know. They don't really, I'm not really trying to give away anything. I'm just really trying to talk about industry stuff that's relevant and some tips that I've learned being on the other side, on the restaurant side. And it was shut down. I was asked to sign a piece of paper saying I would not do that anymore. And I could get into it further, but that was really one of the final straws.
Can I interject too? So in December at the ICSC, this is the power of social media. So December, Kyle says, I see, hey, Beth, we haven't met. I see that you're going to be at ICSC New York. Can we meet? I said, sure. I knew him from Instagram. He comes to my booth. We sit down. I had zero idea what company he was with. He then said, I've got this, challenge. I want to do this. And my company is making me do this. What should I do? And again, I didn't even know who he was with. I said, you need to leave wherever you are. Like, who are you with? I had no idea. Because Kyle had, in my mind, I knew Kyle Inserra as the brand, the restaurant guy. That's what I knew. That was my introduction to Kyle as a brand and in commercial real estate. And then I said, you need to go talk to Jayson Siano. And then, one thing led to another. But the important point here was I had no idea what company Kyle was with. And that goes back to Jay, our discussion or your, interaction with the guys at the Gary Vaynerchuk event, where it said, how important is the company you're with? Yeah, Blake was there. How important is it the company you're with or your brand? Or aligning who you are with companies like Sabre.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Beth. And it's funny because I think a lot of people also that know you and I are friends, Beth, will ask you, or make comments like, I don't get what Jay does. I just don't get it. Like, you can't really convince me how that's at all effective in commercial real estate. We're in real estate. We're not in digital media. Blake, what would you say to somebody who challenged your use of social media or just simply said, is it really important? I don't get it.
Coming from the smaller sub-market that I'm in, Boise, Idaho, for those of you paying attention to this, it's something out there that many people are just not really aware of. Similar to Kyle's story, I know a few local brokers that, do social media and do digital marketing, and they don't post anything about their real estate stuff. And it's because of them not being allowed to. So it's really interesting. I know that I've had a few local brokers ask that same question is, what value or how does this help? And, I can nail 3 things right off the bat that I've been able to not only help my clients, but help others gain more exposure. I'm in the retail sector like many of you guys, and I do a lot of consulting and mentorship similar to you do to my clients and customers. And there's so much value in that, most independent business owners, small business owners haven't had the experience in digital marketing yet. And you not only as a broker helping them find the best real estate location for their business, you're able to, butter them up and help them out with their marketing and digital media. And I mean, the minute that you help them increase sales, I would count them a lifetime client. And it's, small business owners like Beth has put together this amazing, pitch right now to help these small business owners out. And it's just it's everything you can do for your clients and customers to really, help them along, especially in these tough times. I mean, the ability to market in this digital era, and you can leapfrog businesses right now. You can really capitalize.
Yeah, for sure. Question that I have for all you guys, and we'll let Beth kind of kick it off here. Now that everybody's been in isolation for about a month or so here, everybody's becoming a Blake or a Beth or a Kyle. And, when you see that, do you, first off, does that excite you? Is it like, hey, maybe we're not that crazy anymore. We're just far ahead. Do you think about that, Beth? Or do you look at those folks and say, let's just see how long they'll last, once things start to normalize and they do a little, segment on whatever platforms they're using? Will they continue doing that 3 years from now, much like the rest of us? Beth, what are your thoughts?
I don't think it will be maintained and consistent. If pre-COVID, I was doing 2 hours a day and not enough. Post-COVID, I'm doing 3 to 3.5 hours a day. And I do see a lot of people jumping in. I'm encouraging them to jump in because I believe that it's the way of the future. But I know how hard it is and how consistent you have to be relevant. So I bet maybe 10%, and I think I'm being generous, 10% of the newbies that have jumped in will stay. And again, I think that's being generous. That's my prediction. But I wish they would stay because I think the more the merrier.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious because and this is just my perspective, because I was ridiculed, called out for wasting my time, for what's it good for? Can you prove that you got any money from it? Call them, go to their all that kind of stuff. And they didn't even understand it in the context of, all of that, but more so this. So the same people who told me not to do it and, you're wasting my time, I see them doubling down their efforts. So it's pretty entertaining to me.
Blake, you talking about personal brand, you and I have done many lip sync battles on Insta Story. You're so authentic. You don't give a shit what people's opinions are of you. We share that. I'd like to believe we're kindred souls in that department, man. Give the folks watching who would have a tough time just turning the camera on their own face and talking without babbling. Tell us a little bit about how you got comfortable being yourself on video.
Yeah, that's a great question. I know you and I have had some long conversations about that. Right out the get-go, it's, 50 to 100 takes till you get it good. And being in quarantine's actually brought some interesting insight to myself. I'm actually really enjoying it. And I'm really learning about myself, more introverted I am versus extroverted. But, when I first started out, I really set up just kind of a plan of saying, you know, I'm gonna do this for 30 days and see the effects of it. And I started off, like you were mentioning, is doing some silly lip sync battles. And, you know, it was something that I really enjoyed. It was a part of me. I love to sing, but I have a terrible voice. But it was just kind of a thing to do, and it got me excited to do it. And then people kind of started to tune in every day, and it became something that kind of grew really organically. Nowadays, it's really hard to do these lip sync battles because Instagram has something in their algorithm that messes up the words and the songs. So I can't do that anymore. But, you know, for those, you know, paying attention to this, it's just, you know, setting a little plan and holding yourself to it. I mean, it's not easy to get in front of a camera, as we all know. There's days where you're nervous, days where you're close. Like anything else you do, it's, you know, the consistency is the number one thing that, you know, similar to what Beth was saying, is you got to stick with it. You're not going to see the results right out the gate. I mean, many of us, shoot, we met 2.5, 3 years ago at ICSC in Las Vegas, and it's really cool to see us all keep pushing, and it's been cool to see us all adapt and evolve in different platforms. I know I've seen all of you guys grow in different ways, as well as myself. I've been able to adapt and evolve into new platforms and new areas where I've been able to gain attention. But, you know, to your question, Jayson, it just, you know, you just got to do it. You know, as Nike says, just do it.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree with you. And, you know, Beth has been such a big advocate for folks creating their own brands, you know, both on and offline. And Beth, if you would, could you tell the viewers a little bit about your choice in color for outfits and how that evolved? Because I think that's a great example of personal branding.
Sure. So I'm an alumni of Florida State University. Go Noles, for any of the listeners or watchers. And so I'm a big believer in networking in smaller groups. Whether you are a basketball fan, whether you are women or men or freshmen in the industry or vets in the industry or social media people in the industry, I think that networking in smaller groups of like-minded individuals, it's easier to, again, leverage, going back to what I talked about, the ROI, the leverage of that. So early on, I realized my first or second year in the business in Florida, there are 3 main teams, and it's the Florida State Seminoles, the Gators, and the Hurricanes. And when I would go to the Florida ICSCs or the local ICSCs, there were these fast, you know, these silos of those 3 teams, believe it or not. And the ribbing started in, you know, June or July and went all the way through December. And so I started wearing garnet and gold everywhere. And I would wear FSU pins, and because it was, again, you got to get attention. It's about getting attention. And, you know, and then, so then things would happen where I would be in an ICSC audience of 1,000 people, and there'd be some guy up on a dais, and they'd say, and he'd be a Gator, and he would then call me out in the audience. Like, well, I know if Beth Azor, I think she's in the audience, and we all know she's a Seminole. And I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Like, I'm doing the right thing. And the garnet and gold thing just kind of turned into a red thing. I just started wearing more red. And then I have a red car because I have garnet and gold cars. So, but always mine are the garnet or the red. And I got the red phone, you know, and the red laptop case, and my logo was red, and my red business cards, and people just all of a sudden it just clicked. Like I was doing it, but not with the intention of doing it. And then I have a red backpack. So at one point I showed up in ICSC and I didn't have red on, and like 4 people said, "Where's your red?" And I went, "Oh, awesome!" And then that was it. Like that was the rest was history. And now, like I have a whole section in my closet that's all red business attire, my red polo shirts, and that's it. And in my, when I do presentations, ICSE presentations, the background is red. Anything I can do, the books are red. So I keep with the theme. And, people, what I love is when rookies first get in the business, they'll call people and they'll say, we're just new in the business, who should we talk to? And I hear this from them all the time is, well, when you go to the ICSC next week, just find Beth Azor. You can't miss her. She'll be in red. And I always am in red. And there's a picture, someone took a picture of ICSC standing up, like up on the higher level looking into Central Hall C. And there's a sea of black and gray suits. And then there's red with blonde hair. And that's me. And it was like I popped. And so it wasn't planned, but, I keep it going now.
Hey, it's very smart. I mean, and you've helped other people develop that for themselves as well. Gabe, CRE nerd, canvassing with Kara. I mean, there's a whole cast of characters that Beth has basically introduced to commercial real estate, and love that. I think you're doing an amazing job, and we all appreciate that. You said something very important, and you said attention, right? It's about attention. And when I came up with the concept for Future Proof, what my vlog was called up until a week or so ago when we launched Digital Discussions. This is episode number 2, as you guys know. Mm-hmm. I had Ryan Serhant on my first episode of Future Proof, and Ryan and I were talking about the future model for commercial real estate brokerage and what it would look like. I think anybody who hasn't seen that should go back to watch that, based on the fact that it happened, a year and a half ago. And he's super smart and understands the business of commercial real estate brokerage, regardless of what segment it is within real estate. And, he talks a lot about developing a personal brand. And he's one of probably the best who have done it in the real estate space. And, Kyle, I think if we all agree that it's important to get attention, right? Because it's part of your reputation. It's an extension of yourself. That's what the development of a personal brand is. If you're working at a company that says, no, you can't do that, are they possibly affecting your livelihood?
No, 1,000%, because I knew it, like internally, it wasn't who I was. And for sure, the conversation with Beth that she referenced in December was really what kind of got me thinking. And then going back in every day after I had that feeling of, I'm right. And I would go in there, no one would say anything. Everybody who worked there never liked any of the content, never said a word about it unless it was bad. And I'm just instinctively saying, but I'm right. Like you guys, I saw you guys doing content. I follow people and I just know where society is moving and trends and how people are receiving information. This is the right thing to do. It was and has proven to me over the last, it's been like 3 weeks now that since I've been at Sabre, nobody is like, oh my God, you left there? Whatever are you going to do? I would say 99% of them like, what a fantastic move. That is exactly where you should be. That is the place. So they're aligning Sabre with what, the social media and being progressive. And then they see my brand as being like what they thought of it. I could really care less. And if you saw my TikTok, you could see that I could really care less. But they are more like, this is where you should be. I know it because of what I've seen you do. And I think it's just been better. And it's proof that people want to do business with people that they know. And all these people really got to know me from social media. So they're not like I met them at some big function over there. They met me through social media and now they see the alignment. So maybe there's a shift in thinking. Maybe there's not. Whatever it is, it definitely feels good to be at a place that embraces it. And obviously with Jay and his reputation, it's, I think we're really looking to be pretty well positioned here with whoever wants to come on board and try to start doing LinkedIn posts or Instagram lives where they never did them before. I think it just elevates us, and it elevates all 4 of us, I think, because we've done that forever and people have given us, have been dismissive of it. So it does feel good to be at the right place. And if it's something that you feel is instinctively right, then I would go with that.
Awesome, man. I didn't even pay you to put on that whole Sabre infomercial, so I appreciate that. But no, I agree. I think that it's interesting though, because commercial real estate traditionally is not very innovative, and it is a traditional industry, and residential has innovated a lot more, and
Yeah.
developed a lot more than we have. Blake, what would young people, I'm sure, are coming across your social media platforms, and probably initially don't even know what you do for a living, so to speak, and then they
Can I just interrupt for 1 second about Blake? The fact that Blake is from Boise, Idaho, really, like, we just really need to just put it out there, because we all know Blake, regardless of where he's from. And that's a huge message to this audience, because just because you guys are in New York and I'm in South Florida, you can be from Boise, Idaho. God, I just spent 2 weeks there, Blake. I love Boise, Idaho. But you can be from, the tiniest town in the country and have thousands and thousands of followers and get your message across and help people in whatever industry, but specifically commercial real estate. It doesn't matter. That again is the power of social media. So I just had to, and I love your shirt, by the way. Oh my gosh, I need that shirt.
Yeah. In
red.
red.
I need to put that on and walk up and down my shopping center sidewalks.
We need a shirt that says "Cams do," because we can't. It's probably copyrighted or something. But the question that I know Jayson and I were talking the other day in that regard of just, when I first started on social media, it was a business move. It wasn't that, I enjoyed it or I loved the attention from it. I saw a big goal in it. Jayson and I were talking the other day about how business has become global. And when I started, I said, when someone looks up hashtag commercial real estate on Instagram or Facebook or whatever platform it is, I want my face to be the first thing that comes up. And so that was my first goal when it came about. And that's how, obviously I met a lot of you guys as we all started using that hashtag of commercial real estate, and it's grown rapidly over the years. But back to Jayson's question is how it's perceived from the younger generation. I get asked all the time, and I, give a brief description of, I'm a commercial real estate broker. I also manage assets in the Boise market. I've got a really good pulse on it with all these young kids making millions and millions of dollars flipping stuff online. I hope I'm their commercial real estate consultant someday. But that's kind of my connection with it, is I'm saying, okay, all these kids are going to make all this money, and, how can they, avoid paying as much tax as possible rather than just collecting it. So, there's a few reasons why being so young, I've gotten into the industry, and, I'm looking at the long term. Similar to you guys, 5 to 10 years from now, our brands are just going to get even bigger and stronger, and more people are going to know us and they're going to want to do business with us because they trust us. I know many people hesitant to share things, and whether you do or not, there's no judgment at all. It's just whatever you're comfortable with. I know I probably miss out on a lot of stuffy old commercial real estate clients because I share too much, but at the same time, I'm capitalizing on some of those clients that I couldn't reach because I've been able to build that trust. So there's kind of a lot to it, but in the big scheme of things, I look at building a brand digitally in time, and there's nothing holding you back from doing it. It's free.
Yeah,
it just takes a little time.
And what I always thought was interesting too, and I'm sure it's a lot of people have this experience, is I was always told, like, when I was over there, they were like, but you don't know who's even going to see this. Like, what's the point? 30 likes, like, who cares? But the same conversation, aside from social media, is like, yeah, you should go to that networking event. You don't know who's going to be there. You could meet somebody who could you can meet somebody there. You don't know. So it's okay to go put on a suit and tie and waste my time at some cocktail party and have to meet a bunch of people. But it's a complete waste of time to spend 15 minutes in the morning doing a post and reach thousands of people who you don't know is going to see it. And I would say, I'm sure you guys have the same experience. 40% of the DMs I get are people who never engage with me, I don't even know they exist. And they say, hey, I know I know you know a lot about restaurants. I follow you on social media. I'm like, I just got off a call. A guy said that had an issue with his landlord over here, and he has a restaurant that opened in January and found me on Instagram. Has been following me for like a year, and I didn't even know. So I just thought that argument always fell flat. So it's the reason why I stuck with it.
Yeah, Beth, what would you say to the folks? You know, we have a Zoom call every morning, an update call at Sabre, and you know, there are definitely folks like Kyle and I who are on the extreme, you know, one end of the spectrum, and there's folks who, you know, barely use social media at Sabre as well, but they're definitely a lot more aware of how to, and they have a lot of support to do it if they want to do it. And you know, we're seeing a lot of them, you know, get a lot more interested and actually step up their game as well. But Beth, what would you kind of say? I mean, I know you have these conversations all day. So what do you say to people that are like, what's the point? I don't get it.
So my new line, I'm sure you three of you have heard it. I'm sure it resonated with the three of you, because we do have these haters out there, and maybe they're not, you know, they're not all haters, but you know, the negative Nellies. And I just turn around and I say, look, do you want to be relevant? Do you want to be reluctant or relevant? And we have a whole industry of reluctance, right? A whole industry. You know, I think that 75% of our industry are old white guys. And they're very reluctant. And I always use that line, do you want to be reluctant or do you want to be relevant? And I can do that in a room. And I know Blake is a new CCIM. Congratulations. I could have never passed that. So good for you. Mm-hmm. But I literally spoke to a group of CCIMers, a couple, probably back in, I think it was September, October, about 80 people in the room. I think 70 didn't have a LinkedIn profile. And I just said, you know, I'm 59. There were people in the room 40 and 50, like, that's just too much work. We don't need to do that. And you know, go for it. Don't do it. You know, I say, who in this room is going to retire and go to this Hawaii beach behind me in the next year? If you're going to retire in the next year, you're right. You don't have to do it. If you're not retiring in the next 12 months, it's impossible for you to not jump on the bandwagon. But you know, as Jay knows, and we've discussed this a bunch, I was on a mission a few years ago. I have given up that mission. If they don't want to help themselves, that leaves more for us. I find it mind-boggling. But you know, I get the same questions that you guys get. How much time do you put in, and what's the return? And I don't put enough time in, and the return is amazing. It's thousands and thousands of %. And it's definitely added 6 figures of income to me. So Jay, you know what? Gary Vaynerchuk told us, stop pushing.
Yeah.
Let him not do it, right? So I continue to teach it, but I no longer feel the need to preach it.
Right.
I'll teach it if you want it, but I'm giving up the preaching.
And that's, you know, what would Gary say, right? You can't sell the unsellable. So, you know, and I said that to you the last time we were together. I'm like, Beth, listen, you know, I'm happy to go talk to a room full of people who might have some interest in learning more about the platforms and things of that nature. But I'm kind of busy. I don't need to be, you know, running around the country talking to a room full of people who have, you know, who might have interest, but are not actually going to implement it. Exactly. It's like, you know, I mean, I think we all have better things to do. But, you know, what type of, Blake, Kyle, any questions that you're getting frequently, you know, that can help people that are watching this at scale?
Go ahead, Blake. I got to think about that one.
I was going to say, you know, just the time aspect of it. It can take 10 minutes a day if you want it to, you know, but at least it's something. And, you know, kind of touching on what Kyle was saying earlier is, you know, one silly little post, you compare that to the cost of running a billboard ad, and you say, oh, 20,000 cars drive by that billboard a day. You know, the cost of that, is it, $600, whatever the cost is, and you can spend 10 minutes and put a post up on Instagram. And if you spend an extra 10 minutes researching some hashtags, some relevance, and making sure the post is very good and credible, you're going to get the same amount of views, 10, 20,000 views. You have the opportunity to do that on social media. And I think that many people, even though they try to connect an ROI to it, it's kind of intangible. I know I was telling Jayson the other day, similar to a MasterCard commercial, it's priceless. Building a personal brand will take you through so many different opportunities. Similar to what Gary says is, one day I want to sell wine. You built that trust already, and so whether it's commercial real estate or whatever you're doing, I think it's really important for everybody to build a personal brand, even if you are retiring in 12 months.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that, what I've always said is, before I had my own company, I just felt like I worked for myself. And, I was Jayson Siano, whether I was at this company or whether I went to EBRE later, which is where I was prior to starting Sabre, and I think, and part of what Ryan and I were talking about on episode 101 was, you need to create that you basically be wherever it is that you decide to hold your license, right? Because ultimately, and that's how I look at Sabre, by the way. Like, I look at Sabre as this, kind of umbrella that people can decide to be a part of or not be a part of, but it's a platform that I've built for people who might want to tap into it, so to speak. I'm not looking at it at all as everything that we do at Sabre is in the best interest of Sabre. It's a very different mentality than what people in my position typically set up companies to look and feel like, which I think is why it's definitely a little forward thinking and built for the future. But I think it's so important for people to realize that you have to make sure that you're developing a personal brand, that people associate you when they see you. They associate you with what you specialize in. Whether you're working at XYZ company or ABC company, it makes no difference, right? And especially like in the residential world, I feel like those big companies are revolving doors, where the real estate agent is going from this one to this one to this one. The only thing that remains consistent is their reputation, right? And ultimately, a personal brand is your reputation. I like to say that I'm building a life resume. I can't tell you guys the last time that I've figured out a business. It's like, oh, you're on Instagram? Okay, cool. I'll follow you. I'll DM you later, And again, that might be much more comfortable to us, because we've been doing this so long. But I think that the folks who it's not necessarily comfortable for yet are going to realize that, in a very short period of time, it's going to just push them. They have to head that direction. And coronavirus, by the way, is gasoline and dynamite, on everything that was already happening. I keep saying that. But if you guys noticed that, everything that was happening gradually leading up to, this pandemic, it's like overnight, like a light switch. It's like, holy shit, social media is important. And it's the only way that I'm visible now because everybody's at home. And, it's like, told you so.
Yeah. I mean, there's a thing in restaurants. Well, when you're coming up in the restaurant business, they're always like, you don't want to work for the place with the owner's name on the door. Like, if it's like, Kyle Steakhouse, you're never going to be bigger than the owner, than the chef, right? He's there. He's putting himself out there for that. At the bigger companies, that's what they want. You can't be bigger than the Shield. And when I came over to Sabre, I said to Jay, I was like, is there anything you want me not to do? And he was like, I can't even think of anything that would upset me that you might potentially post. So you have to get in that mindset of, if you have to be comfortable in your own skin, regardless of who you work for. And if you can align the two, that's ideally what you're looking for. But, I just see it as the only way. I really see it as the only way. And it's a very old school, stay in line. You can grow with this company if you do the right thing. Well, I don't think that's the way you grow. I think you align yourself with who you are with the company. And when those two synergies come together, that's what works. And when it's, something like social media where, you can put down people for the amount of time they spend on it, but that same person, as soon as you walk away, is going like this and looking up something on their phone. So I'm a big believer in, you're being an individual and putting yourself out there on social media will get you a lot more business than falling in line behind a big corporate shield and, putting your weight on that. Because now that the playing field has been leveled and we're all looking at each other on the same level, the ability to be nimble and to be yourself and to be genuine, and people already know that by the time you walk into the room, is a huge asset.
And I would say this, I always tell people this, I don't care if they're 1 year in the business or 30 years in the business, whether they work for themselves or they work for a big company, you are the CEO of your own future. Okay, you are the CEO of your own future, regardless of everything else. And with these young kids, I have this group every Friday called the Freshman Forum, and we have about 150 to 200 kids that have been in the industry 5 years or less. We started it because in 2009, we lost a generation of people because they had nowhere to turn. And these kids, I tell these kids all the time, your social media presence and content is your resume. It is your resume. And if I just announced I'm going to hire 4 interns this summer as soon as we can open, I'm going to get 4 new interns. I've said to all of them, send me a 2-minute video. And the next thing I'm going to do after I see the video, if I like the video, is I'm going to go look at their social media presence. You can send me a resume if you want, but that's like old school.
Yeah.
Like if they're not on Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn and they've not been posting and have content, they're not going to be one of my 4.
Yep. Love that.
There you go.
What do you guys think, Blake? What platforms are you using most to get yourself out there? What do you use most?
You know what? Since I would say probably from January till current day, I've been really pushing the Twitter train. Oddly enough, I've been I kind of got hooked on it with the news aspect of it. And I was like, this is a platform I haven't really learned about or learned how to grow and provide value. And so I've been using a lot of Twitter the last 6 months, as well as TikTok. I know Kyle is crushing it on TikTok. I think that, I had the opportunity through a colleague of mine is to go check out the TikTok headquarters back a few months ago. And shoot some content, which was actually pretty cool and very interesting at the same time. It was not what you expect for a social media headquarters. They were still in their old office, but it was pretty small, pretty interesting. But TikTok will be one of those interesting things to see how long it lives. I know there's been some government issues with it due to it being owned by a Chinese company, but we'll leave that for another day. But TikTok and Twitter has kind of been a big push the last 6 months. And so always innovating and trying the new apps. And, my biggest advice would say follow Gary Vee. He really knows, when he's on something, putting out a lot of content, he knows it works. So that's my advice.
Yeah, Beth, what about you when you're giving your students some advice on what platforms to use? Is there a different platform that might work for a different person? Is there a specific way to use it, customize it to your own needs, and what maybe your skill sets are?
Absolutely. So I use LinkedIn for my leasing agent audience and generally the general commercial real estate audience. And I post a lot of content there for the wider range CRE industry. And then Instagram, which I just started not a year ago, I've really focused on the 5 years or less, my leasing peeps on there 5 years or less, because it definitely skews younger. And then Facebook, I use for the community. So Facebook, I'm talking to my mom and pops and the people who love my mom and pops, who can tell me who the mom and pops are I should be prospecting. And so I'm talking to the community there, so that I get a lot of feedback from independent retailers who say, hey, I saw you on Facebook, and do you have a vacancy at XYZ Center? So 3 different platforms, completely different audiences.
Love that. Excellent. Before we wrap this up with a bow, guys, anything that you'd like to say? Obviously, we'll have your handles on all platforms that in the body of this email and on every platform it goes out on. Final thoughts. We'll go around the room quick here. Well,
Me, I think, look, if you're on the fence about it, now is the time to go all in on it. Spend an hour a day just either engaging or creating content. You have the time. If you're in our industry, it's, I think, essential, and it's time to start looking at how you market yourself and just do some research. I'm sure there's some free classes online. There's plenty of content being offered every day that you could consume. Find what works for you. Maybe you're a writer. Maybe you're somebody who tells a better story on Twitter, in the short form character stuff. Maybe you're a better video person, but find out who you are and really, really dive all into it, because it's the only way to get out in front of a lot of people these days. If there's another way to do it, I'd love to hear it, but I think that this is it.
for sure. Blake, final thoughts, Blake.
Final thoughts, let's do content together. Everybody grow up. What's up?
Hey, love that.
It's that easy.
For sure. Beth, why don't you wrap it up for us?
Okay, Blake said 50 takes. I never do a second take, and I never look at the video I take, which is why sometimes I have makeup, pouring down my face. So don't be reluctant, be relevant.
I love that, guys. Listen, this is a panel of OGs. I hope you guys got some value out of it. And I love you all, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time.
'Cause this is digital discussions.